Okay. Calling roll, please.
I just texted that.
President Tippleman.
Here.
Vice President Seeley.
She's here.
Vice President Seeley.
Yes, I'm here.
Treasurer McLeod.
Here.
Parliamentarian Hicken. Here. Senator Lunsford. Here. Senator Dwad. Senator Jobe. Here. Senator Parrish. Here. Senator Jacobs. Here. Senator Williams. Senator Washburn. Senator Freshour. Here. Senator Shaka. Here. Senator Bell. Here. Senator Method.
Here.
Senator John. Senator Sweetland.
Here.
Senator Camarillo.
Here.
Senator Meek. Senator Robertson. Senator Romero. Senator Adams.
Here.
Senator Daniel.
Here.
Senator Duke.
Here.
Senator Fruit.
Here.
Senator Jackson. Senator Johnson. Senator Mazzock. Senator Tucker. Senator Morrison.
Here.
Senator Mosley. And Senator Aguilera. Senator Hart. Senator Strong. Here. Senator Copeland.
Here.
Senator Seeley. Here.
All right. So that.
I gotta look. Okay.
We're good.
Oh, thank you, Sammy.
Okay. That's much too close, but at this point, is there any discussion on the minutes from last week? None? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstention? Is there anyone here for open forum? Okay. So for speakers podium, we have Christopher King and what is it? Luke. All right, so Chris and Luke are here to present for the bike share program, and we're going to give them the floor now.
Anything on here?
No, apparently I'm just going to chat. Thanks. This is awesome. I mentioned earlier that I've taught to this group that I taught high school for 10 years, so this fulfills my dream of talking to a college campus like I'm a real professor here. This is kind of cool. We're from Spin. We're a stationless bike share company. This is our bike. And by stationless, I'm sure many of you have been to a major city that has a docked system where you walk up to a specific area, the bikes are locked, you unlock it via the app, you pay, you ride it around, and you take it to another specific spot in the city, docked, like a bus route. This is stationless. In other words, the goal of this bike on campus would be to take the place of students having to own a bike. These bikes would be dispersed around the campus, and over time, based on heat maps and where students are originating rides and where those rides are ending, those bikes would be rebalanced to put where students need them most. Going back to the idea of stationless, this bike has a lock underneath the seat here that is manually locked when you're done with the ride. So that is the back end of it. When you approach a bike, you look on the app and you see that there's a bike around the corner or in front and back of the building you're in, you'd be able to walk up to the bike using the app that you would download, scan the QR code, and this one is running a little low on battery and somehow going to your house. You messed it all up a little bit. It's still saying it's there. So we're having a little issue. You heard it a moment ago, but it opens up and you begin a ride. You're allowed to ride really anywhere around campus, take it and park. I'm going to focus on parking here because I think it'll be up to this group and then the community at whole to park the bike responsibly. It's a phrase I'll probably say a few times. You do not put the bike directly in front of a door, diagonal, and so on. You can park next to a bike rack. You can put it in a bike rack, up against a building, or kind of however the university decides where those bikes are best parked. And that'll be something, a decision that happens here. It has a solar panel here in the front that connects the lock, and the inside of the lock there's a GPS unit that pings us about every 4 minutes to allow us to know where rides are starting and where they're ending. So if there are a group of bikes on campus like sheep in a flock and one of them's gone 2 miles off campus to someone's boyfriend or girlfriend house and left there, within 24 hours, we go get that bike and bring it back. We'll hire local students to be part of our rebalancing crew. We also work with a local mechanic to both assemble all bikes we put on campus, and then at least once a month, every bike goes through a 45+ checkpoint to make sure this bike is working great. It's in our best interest to make sure this bike is tip-top shape, right? If we are putting our name on there, we want people to ride. We don't want a ripped seat, a broken pedal, a messed up gear, or so on. I mentioned gears. There's 3 gears. There's a bell on the left hand, front brakes. The seat has a spring-loaded section there that allows it to go up and down. The basket in front, fender in the back. If it rains, you won't get that wet stripe up and down your back. And I did not mention the dual kickstand there, so it doesn't get tipped over easily. But at this point, there's about 57 different directions I can go to kind of explain more things. But I'd really like to kind of hear what you guys have to say or ask, and then I can sort of everybody's going to ask a question that somebody else was thinking of, and we can kind of explain it from there. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
So you really just kind of put it anywhere, like it doesn't need to
You
be.
responsibly park it.
Yeah, responsibly park it.
Yes, that's sort of the answer, right. So the idea that it takes the place of a bike. So you would get on a bike. So we would, outside of residence halls, outside of certain places in the morning, the idea is that you come out of your dorm, you wake up at 8:30, you leave at 8:40, and you grab a bike and you ride across campus, and then you park it, again, sort of by parameters that'll be dictated by the university, right? Do we want it next to these things, up against buildings, that kind of thing? We'll probably have signage and so on that would educate sort of the bike share culture that'll happen here. And I think over time, it really begins, everyone kind of buys in. The bike weighs less than 40 pounds, which sounds kind of heavy, but if it is in the way, most people go, ugh, and then just put it over there. And it does people it'll be moving kind of, or moving it that way. But yeah, that's kind of the idea. The dock stations are I think is sort of the old cameras with film. And they're phone booths. Yes, that's a better example. They're phone booths, and these are cell phones, right? You can move with them. Oh, and with my leftover fidget spinners, we're answering the first question.
The question is, how many more do I have?
Go ahead. Anybody else questions? Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Where is the GPS located on the bike?
So there's a SIM card in the lock itself.
So could that be removed? Like if someone stole the bike, could they take that off?
If someone has a good set of tools, they could remove it and then have the bike themselves.
They could have an orange spin bike that says spin.pm.
Exactly like this.
So in the instance that they are stolen and the GPS is off, who would replace that bike?
We would. We're not real worried about our orange spin bikes. Yeah, we use
No.
non-traditional parts. We have hard tools, different tools that are not really common in bike shops. We have to often send tools with our bikes to be put together because they don't have the tools we have. So there's not a lot of parts in here that are like high-end black market type stuff.
Can we talk about costs? What are the annual fees for your services? How much does it cost per bike?
Great question. Can you talk about this, or do you want me to discuss it?
I can sort of give you so there's sort of 2 models that we're looking at. One is where students pay to use the bikes the way you would in like a city, the way y'all have it set up.
And I can explain those costs.
Yes, or there's another model where the university pays based on a projected amount of use. And that would be determined based on a trial period we would have if we decide to go forward with this. It will work one of those 2 ways. The way that best suits our needs, we don't know yet because we've never had something like this. We would have to have a trial period and use that data to make a more informed decision.
As far as the fees, on a campus, anyone that would sign up with a Tyler, Texas EDU email, it would be 50 cents per 30-minute ride, and then 50 cents every 30 minutes after that, which we thought, I think, was a great idea, that a lot of rides are 8 minutes. And so people even though it's 50 cents, kind of felt ripped off, right? So we have a $14 a month unlimited rides with no cap. And then sort of the kicker is the $49 for a calendar year unlimited rides. So you figure 3 months is $42. You might as well just do the year thing, and then you'd have as many rides. So it encourages this idea of here for 6 minutes, lock it, take it over here for 10 minutes, go over here, visit a friend, stop. Oh yeah, let me just park the bike, lock it, that kind of thing. So, more rides, more usage and so on. But then there's also this other option that we've kind of discussed as well.
Okay, so initial implementation, excuse me, is there a fee for the bike, like a one-time fee?
Nope.
Or is it just?
You download the free app
and there it is?
and you would be able to start scanning and riding a bike.
The idea is that if we choose an option where students use an account and pay for either the month or the year or per ride, going that route, there's zero cost to the university in any shape, way, form, or fashion. But if we would like to offer this service as a free service for students to use, the university would incur the cost of riding the bikes rather than the students. And that would be based differently depending on our usage.
Yeah, we're kind of figuring that out. We're going to look
Yes.
at a similar situation and then come up with that number. We're
Yes.
working on it now. Yes, ma'am.
How is it
Last one. Go ahead.
How do you ensure that students park this responsibly, not like in a parking lot where other cars get hit or something like that?
We cannot. 100%, right? At the end of the day, when you get inside a Lyft or an Uber, you're supposed to put on a seatbelt, but you may not choose so. So
We all have significant issues with parking.
no, so Luke works in the city of Dallas, which has an open permit for a lot of stationless bike share companies in the entire city of Dallas. So maybe how do we ensure that, talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, so a lot of that comes down to the people that we hire here on site,
Yes.
making sure going around daily, checking the bikes, one for any safety issues or malfunctions that may happen, but also just making sure everything looks neat, even wiping them down if they get dirty, anything like that. Because we want these things to look as appealing to everyone as possible so they'll be encouraged to actually ride them. So it pretty much comes down to hiring good people that are out there and care about this and make sure that everything looks neat. And then as people start to buy into it across campus, everyone starts to kind of park responsibly anyway because you understand that it's not exactly yours, but anytime you want it to be, it should be.
It is a culture, I think, that you kind of buy into, right? It takes a little bit of time. I think there was a question back here.
So, SGA, are we using this as a center project?
No.
Is that initial goal? No, it's just, okay. Then that, I think, is correct.
Yes, ma'am.
It can be though.
And that is sort of the third option I thought you
Oh,
discussed. That's
sorry.
sort of a,
I totally forgot.
no, that's okay. So there is the pay mentioned that 50 cents, that kind of thing. There's this option here. I think what we're considering and kind of discussing is having some sort of monthly allotment for January through May 4th, seeing how much rides in that, using that data to then put advertisements on the basket to some degree, which is sort of where in the very beginning stages of a lot of schools talking about that idea. And that would cover the cost. So it's kind of free for the university, it's free for the student, and a local hospital or someone that promotes good health.
Or just like
Organizations on campus, and we could do 6 bikes, something like that. And I think there's a lot of options. It's the stationless bike share companies in the United States are a little under a year old, so this is all pretty new and fast. We didn't start with this idea how to advertise on the bike, but I think it's been coming up enough that we're discussing with the University of California, San Diego, who are going to put a bunch of bikes. They really want, that's their number one thing. In fact, we just got off the phone call where they were talking about when can we get the advertising, how does that work? So it will happen, and I think that's why we're talking about that sort of monthly thing, and then see where we are. Long answer to say yes. Yes again. I saw.
Just kind of crossing T's, dotting I's. I don't
Yes,
think-
ma'am. No.
I'm just thinking worst case scenario, liability wise, who incurs the liabilities?
Great, yeah.
University, or is it y'all, or how does that work?
We're going to put your name on it, Lindsay, and have you.
Okay.
We have, like a Lyft or an Uber, we assume all liability. So we have the insurance policy, we accept it. When you sign up for an account, you sort of say that there is something that says that they understand that you will be, so if you do hurt your elbow or hurt your ankle or some sort of something, then the insurance comes to us. We alert the university, we do all the paperwork, and then we keep them sort of abreast of what's going on as we go through it. I have this one.
I think we're just trying to better understand. So with this trial run thing, say we get bikes in for our university, what's y'all's cost for this trial run? Is it just you're gonna give us a bunch of bikes just to kind of see how it goes?
Sort of. So we're talking about 150 bikes, and we're actually looking at some other cases, and we're gonna look at other universities that we're at that have 150 or 100-ish bikes, how many rides per month they had, and then figure out, so it would be about this much per month. And then we're gonna do like a 3-month type charge, and then kind of figure out, we're not looking to gouge
Yeah. Well, 'cause
anybody.
we have like center projects, and this is something that like we haven't really put into like perspective yet. And I think to like get something like this started, like for our university and really kind of push it, it'd be a good idea for some senators to take on something like this. And that's why I'm just trying to like, progress that
Sure.
forward. Because I love this, and I would think that if senators wanted to kind of get this more going, and we use this as a senator project, we could use money from our like government association
I gotcha.
towards this to like better advertise it.
Makes sense.
Very much so. And any way that works. Again, we just have to have something sort of incur these costs,
Okay.
just to some degree.
Yeah.
But we're gonna make it, hopefully, that works within a budget for the spring semester of 2018. Because then we'll know how many rides. We want to average 6 rides per bike per day. So if we have 150 bikes and they're getting 19 rides per bike per day, we have to add more bikes to bring, that. So we're going to be able to know that, especially heading into the fall of 2018 with freshmen whose parents know that you have this and didn't buy a Walmart or Target beater bike that's going to get stolen. So the idea is that they would come ready to sort of use the bike system. And if you really think about it, in 4 years, starting in the fall, everybody that comes through campus, this is just something they'll expect. And so they won't, maybe you have a couple juniors or seniors that maybe like, oh, I don't really want to do this, but everybody that kind of comes in buys into it, and then it's just sort of something that you guys have. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with the cost, if we do it for the students pay for the ride, then the $50 for the year.
$49, I said.
Would it be for the calendar year?
Calendar year.
Okay.
So there'd be a few months over the summer that you wouldn't necessarily do it, but considering $49 covers about 4 months, you're really getting the better deal, right? You're getting a number of months. And you college students can figure out the per month cost of $49, so.
So when we have to school is not only job in college, is the job of what's the true title called? If there's a title.
So there's two different ones really.
Yeah.
There's like a brand ambassador role, and then there's what in the cities we call rebalancers. And those are the people that actually move the bikes.
So they they applied for you guys, because I didn't know the way to push this too, like not only is it for you, but you need a job and it's on campus.
Yep, it is on campus, and we also hire a local bike mechanic to fix all the bikes at all times. So there's, some local employment as well. What was the question?
How do they apply for those?
Yeah, so we usually come out, if we would start on, say, February 1st, we'd come out about a week ahead of time. We'd have a campus launcher, and that person would probably meet with you, meet with transportation, meet with sort of everybody, get everybody on board, make sure the bikes are being built, make sure they're getting charged up, just sort of get everything ready, but also hire that staff. And it would be, I believe there's usually like a message board or something, like local university employment, that those positions go out that way.
I don't understand what they're.
It's someone that helps people through technical issues, maybe with signing up for the app, and also just encourages people to start using this, help facilitate cross-campus traffic, that kind of thing. Yeah, more of a personal skills type role, so not a class necessarily. Yeah, more than a rebalancer who is really just taking care of the bike itself. Brand ambassador is the person role.
And for us being, he's in Dallas and I'm in San Francisco, sort of that being able to reach out, our campus launcher is going to be, in Colorado, calling, trying to just make sure we're on the same page and everything's going all right. Any more questions? Yeah. 49, I said. We're not overcharging you. Go ahead. That's a good question.
Yeah, and yes.
Yeah.
Those who come to Dallas, all the same app, same bikes you'll see, Dallas, Seattle, Miami.
Great question.
LA, San Diego. We're all over now and growing. So Yeah, once you're bought in as a student somewhere, you get that same rate wherever you go.
I would have said yes, no matter what on that answer, had I not known. Yes.
That's a kind of good point. How far can, how many are facing on those bikes? But I don't know, let's say they did decide to go here to the Foundry in downtown Tyler. Are they allowed to take a certain distance?
We were there today, actually.
Oh.
I knew exactly where you're referring to. There isn't a limit on the distance, obviously. So we hope that student or students bring the bike back. I will say that the reason we were downtown today is because we did meet with the city of Tyler. We usually do it as a courtesy. In this case, they were very interested in what we were doing. They have a 3-year bike plan with bike lanes and all this stuff. So I believe that as the university kind of goes, the city is going to be a half step behind you in terms of over the next couple of years. They have a large amount of money in grants to paint lanes and to kind of re-traffic some things to allow for more usage. So if a student would go downtown to the Foundry and have a nice cup of coffee, they would, and it starts raining and there's 2 bikes there and they decide to take a lift back, those bikes after 24 hours max would sort of come back, we'd pull them back into the flock. And if the city does it and the campus does it, we'd always make sure that you guys have your allotted number of bikes on campus. We don't want to be like, well, their bikes are just downtown. It doesn't do you guys any good here.
So with that, is there only like one docking station in?
There are no docking
There are
stations.
no, okay.
Because it
I
self-locks.
missed that part. Missed that part.
Yeah, so there are no docking stations, so that's sort of the big draw about it, right?
Okay, so that's just chills. And that's its docking station.
Yes.
That's legit.
So it's the same idea as if that was your bike and you had a lock and you pulled up to a bike lock, a bike rack and you locked it.
I totally missed this.
And so now that you lock it there, then you walk to class. Here, it's just not on the bike rack. It is locked right next to the bike rack.
If I'm feeling lazy and I drove to school, I
I
just want
get
to
it.
ride my bike around campus, and then
I heard from the students here a lot of stories about being lazy around campus.
leave the smallest campus. Yeah, that's totally shocking.
So another question we had sort of the last time we talked about bikes was if you bring a bike to the business building and when you leave the business building, there's no bikes there. Can you kind of explain how y'all work this equilibrium system to ensure something like that doesn't happen? Because that was a concern that they had.
Yeah, I mean,
Or rarely happens.
so yeah, over time, we'll begin to see where bikes will need to be. So maybe in the very beginning, on the first couple of days, you may go to a certain building and leave it, and then somebody comes out an hour later like, hey, there's a bike here, and that's kind of cool. We'll begin to see more and more usage, more and more drop-offs, as well as the rebalancing, putting those bikes in the right spot. So in the very beginning, there might be that, especially if you go off campus to somewhere kind of unique or random, and you don't, and someone else walks out and thinks, bike's here. The goal would be then to continue to add more bikes so that it reaches a point where there would be 2 or 3 bikes there already as you pull up your 4th bike, and then those bikes could also go away as well. Does that make more sense? Yeah. Yes.
So let's say we did the university thing and we did the projected income thing. Great. So if we kind of hit that usage point, this is after the trial run, if we hit that usage point, would you like shut down the bikes or would
No.
it just pay a little?
No. This would be an unlimited charge. So we're just trying to figure out. This isn't. I don't want to say unusual. It's just a request that I don't have a number offhand, and I don't really want to say like it's $25,000, like because it's not that. But I just want to have a general idea, and then I have to. We're just gonna. If this doesn't work, kind of let me know what your budget is. But I want this to work on every level. So we're just gonna make it work. If that makes any sense. It's sort of.
One more question.
Yes.
So when you're looking at the trial stuff and you're getting all this data, I'm guessing you get the data no matter what every year, right? Probably on an annual basis.
We receive the data all the time, and we also provide monthly reports to the university. So, for example, there's a professor here in the engineering department, Dr. Suleiman. He was very interested in the data of where rides were going, especially in the city, because they have proposed, as he called them, like downtown was a hub, and then there were spokes of a wheel, and he wanted to know if those spokes were correct. They thought that these might be good, but if he's seeing that everyone's going from campus this way, that's extremely important to him. So I think it benefits everybody to kind of share that and have him as it builds here throughout. I thought there was one more point I wanted to say, but
Yeah, and for the data thing, we do monthly so that it's not overwhelming because in Dallas, I look at that every morning, and that's how I decide where bikes need to be around. And then I see where they've gone by the evening, and they can go to the next day. So we could provide it daily or even live, but that's just way too much information. One other thing I want to point out while I'm here is I'm having a technical malfunction on this lock right now because it's gone offline and servicing is terrible, and it hasn't been connected to a cell tower. This is not an issue on. So this bike is the one that we'll have on campus, but this lock is not. I've transplanted this lock from an older bike.
And the reason he did that is because the bikes in Dallas are an older version, and this is the version 3. This is the most updated version. So he had that, but not the right lock.
So
he called it Frankenstein.
Yes, the locks that come on this bike also have Bluetooth. So this is never a problem for the bikes that will come here. It'll be able to connect just in near-field technology, Bluetooth, to your phone and unlock. So you're never stuck somewhere with a bike that won't unlock because it's in a parking garage or something like that.
Or you just have bad cell service here on campus. You have a carrier that has a weird dead spot out here. You'd be able to connect via Bluetooth. That's what I was saying. That's a campus safety type thing, right? You're at the library, you look at it, you think there's 3 bikes out there, you walk out, but you can't get any. So you don't want to have to pick the bike up and like hold your cell phone up trying to get it. Instead, use Bluetooth and be able to access it. That's a good point. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Is the app that we use available in multiple app stores? I'm only familiar with Apple, which I'm assuming.
Yeah, we're in both. Yeah, Android and Apple. Yes.
I'm not sure about Windows Mobile, but Just kidding for that one person.
Well, normally it's cellular. That's what he's saying. Normally he doesn't have good service. That's why it's not working. Normally, if that was the V3 lock and not sort of this hybrid thing, he'd be able to just go with the Bluetooth and it would access it normally.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, so say if I'm on bike to the library, and
You mean this bike? Okay, when you said my bike, I thought you were referring to like literally your bike.
somebody take that bike, like scan that bike, really easy before I come back out.
Very much so. And sort of that's kind of the hope, that you would pull up the library and there'd be half a dozen bikes there. So you would park your bike, you'd lock it, your ride would end, your bike would pop up on the screen, and then you'd come out an hour, well, I'm sure you'd study for 6 hours because you're working hard, you'd come out and then you'd see, even if you wrote down all the numbers of those 6 bikes when you went in, I bet you a number of them are different by the time you come out because the goal is that they're moving, right? They're kind of like, they're just moving around. So that's the idea, that there would be a bike there, maybe not necessarily the bike that you, that's why I kind of clarified my bike.
I was making sure like I was
Right, and that's another thing is before you even came outside and worried about that situation, you could open up the app and see where the nearest bike to you was. So maybe it's on the back side of the building. And
Yes.
You have to walk around to that, but you would have known that before, and maybe you just went out a different door for it.
And that could be, it's on the backside because somebody got on a bike, started riding, saw their friend goes walk, they're like, cool, put it nicely, responsibly park it, lock it, and leave it right there. So it's sort of in an odd place, but it's okay. And you would see that it's in this spot, and be able to use it.
You mentioned something about safety. Can you talk briefly about the safety features of the bike?
I'm gonna let you do that again.
Yeah, so the tires are tubeless. They're like a foam composite, so they're never going to pop and go flat on you while you're riding around somewhere. The bike is certified to the highest levels of a couple different international safety protocols. It's been through a lot of rigorous testing, not seen a breakdown yet. It has a front white light that is powered by the motion of the front wheel, so that'll come on as you start moving. And the rear red light is solar powered, and it is motion activated, so it starts flashing when you start riding. There's a chain guard over the chain to protect your clothes, shoelaces from getting caught in it, and all of the cables are now routed through the body of the bike, so they're not going to get caught on anything, get snagged, so suddenly the brake isn't working. The seats now, they have this sort of maximum height that can't be taken out, so you don't have to worry about getting to a bike and it not having a seat on it, which is a problem I've seen in Dallas with my older bikes. And then from another safety perspective, we do hire the mechanic here, so rebalancers are constantly checking the bikes and seeing if something goes wrong, reporting that, taking it back to the mechanic and fixing anything. And one of the big features of that is a rebalancer will flag a bike when they find it with an issue. And if there's some time before someone can come pick it up, we take the bike offline so you won't see it in the app and you won't be able to rent it if there's a problem with it. So no one's going to be getting on a dangerous bike.
And that's something we try to let people know so they think that we don't want you to think that the app stinks and that our bike, it's purposely taken off. Because if somebody says that the chain is off or this isn't working, we don't want someone to walk 5 minutes later and take a faulty bike. So that will happen.
And I'll get that bike turned around within a day. Usually.
Yeah. I mean, I will say a lot of questions that came up first are about the parking. And I keep on saying responsible parking. And I always say like there will be some sort of Yahoo shenanigans in the first couple weeks, right? It's a new thing. They're all over campus. You can tip them over if you want. You can do these things. People buy into it pretty quickly though. I mean, it kind of goes from craziness to fairly nice really quick. I mean, even in Dallas, you can ride around a major city like that. You see them just sort of lined up in different companies and so on, nicely lined up. You know, I think everybody, as long as they treat it well, it's sort of a peer pressure type thing. You sort of see everybody doing it. You don't want to be the guy full of shenanigans. Yes, ma'am.
So what if I ride the bike and like something happens? Can I report it like in the app? Like,
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that's another safety feature I forgot to mention. So we have in-app reporting, and we have a sort of checklist of things that may be common. And you click that. If a user does that, that decommissions the bike for us too, so no one else is going to have to ride it. And then we have a part in there where you can actually take a picture of the issue of the bike, so that we can really properly respond to it, make sure it's the right bike, that kind of thing. We also have live chat on our website, so you can talk to a person right then. We've got a phone number and email, Twitter. We pretty much set all these things up, and they'll route to customer support if they need to. We try, especially in a nice confined area like a campus, we're responding within an hour.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. If you've ever studied or read any articles about station bike share, you'll see sort of the worst case scenarios in a lot of situations, the overcrowding and so on, especially overseas. I think that's where we're kind of unique in the sense that we always start lower than we think and sort of build slowly. We don't ever want to say, oh, you got 12,000 students, here's 6,000 bikes. Like, and they're everywhere. Like, that's not the idea. It's a slow build to really kind of mesh into the culture and allow everyone to kind of work with us and grow with us. And I think sort of sets us apart in terms of how we do these things. We don't come in and push the maximum because it would make sense for us to do that, right? More bikes, more rides, sort of better bottom line for us. We just really want this to work for you guys. So we're just going to work until it gets to that point. And it may be that according to our calculations offhand, there should be 300 bikes, but for you guys, it only ends up being 225. Like, and that's okay. We want that to be okay with campus on all levels. And I just think that's especially if you guys go home and kind of look, you'll see worst case scenarios overseas in China. And that's really, we're trying to be the antithesis of that.
And your general practice is 100 bikes per 300 students, correct?
3,000 students.
Oh, 3,000.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
That's a
100
general,
bikes
right?
per 3,000 students.
That's sort of
y'all.
a general idea that we start out with. About 100 bikes per 3,000 students. That's close to the 6 rides per bike per day. So if we have, so if there's 9,000 students here, you think 300 bikes, but if we're not getting 6 rides, then we're going to take some out or add some more. We're just going to, that's about 100 bikes per 3,000 students. 1 bike per student. No, it's not that. So that's kind of the general idea, but we want students to be able to have the bikes and have them accessible. We want them riding it, but we don't want every bike being ridden, so there's no bikes to pick up. Any more? These are great questions.
I think that's it.
I'm dying to say everybody take out piece of paper number 1 through 10. That was my old joke when I was in high school to think everyone there was a quiz. And everybody every time. I think you guys have other business. I mean, we can stick around a little bit. I don't know if you have a break or if there's other questions like that. It's up to you.
We won't field this until old business.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
It could be a while, so if y'all don't want to stay, that's not necessary. But if you want to stay, you're more than welcome.
All right. We'll probably confer over here and see. We have to drive back to Dallas. So,
Yes, okay.
okay.
Yeah, I will go ahead.
We have to ride these bikes back to Dallas.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Congrats.
Any questions? They have our information. See you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie rode the bike earlier. It's pretty darn cool.
Did I ride it home and back here?
Yeah. John rode the bike. I didn't ride the bike because I was interested.
For officer reports, I'll start off. I've had the last of our tuition committee meetings as far as what we will have. We'll discuss that a little bit more tonight as SGA. And then also, we've had a lot of interesting stuff going on campus lately as we are fielding open forums for our VP of Student Affairs search. And so we have had 2 candidates so far this week. There will be another one tomorrow. Like to really kind of see people like who are involved be at these forums so that they know what questions really need to be asked, and to try and gauge really who the best fit for us is. And those were in the UC Theater, 1:30 and 2:30, 2:30 being the student session. That's really what I've been focusing on this week. So that's all for me. Vice President, it's you.
Okay, way back when, before break, I went to UT SAC, and that was really productive. Lots of good recommendations coming out of there that will go to the regents, that will change system-wide. One of the hot topics was open educational resources. Our recommendation will be that the UT system move towards open educational resources. And for anyone who hasn't never really heard of that concept, it's the idea that there are repositories online with free textbooks that you can access, and your professors would adopt those textbooks. And that's really interesting. Again, it's only a recommendation to the regents, but I think that's something we've already been working towards here on our campus, and that's a really interesting sort of movement. And then I've been working really hard on this spin stuff, and I'm glad they were here. I also, if we decide to bring this up in old business and talk about it some more, I also have the results from the survey that we sent out ready to present to you guys. I didn't want to present it with them here because they do have travel plans that we needed to accommodate. So, ready to go?
To touch on that for just a second, we're kind of looking at vaguely with the open educational resources right now is possibly implementing that through Common Core courses first. That is the what we're looking into as far as UT Tyler, and then UT System would have a completely different idea, but we're working on that with that Finance Affinity group. Secretary McDaniel?
Hey guys. I was just working on kind of advertising things for this kickoff the finals coming up. My committee worked really hard on some ideas, and so we're just getting printing stuff out about it.
Treasurer McLeod?
Alright, so next week I plan to present the budget to update y'all on all the expenditures we've made this semester. And along with that, I will also be presenting the changes I'm recommending for the next fiscal year on budget. And I'll be working with my committee this week to get their recommendations, so it's going to be really exciting. And next week, I want to remind y'all that we have about $4,000 for Senator Project. And we really want y'all to give us any ideas that y'all may have. We can work with y'all so y'all can get it going, because we don't want everything to be done last minute in the spring. So if y'all have any good or bad ideas, just come to us and talk about it. So that's all I got.
Veteran Hickey?
All right, so I just have a couple of things. It's mostly just going to be about elections. So we've already announced election dates, but there are some other deadlines that I need to be aware of. So for officer elections, the filing deadline, so that's the last day that you can turn in your application, is going to be February 9th. That's a Friday, so the deadline's going to be the end of business day that day, so 5 p.m. You can file anytime between tomorrow night, which is when the applications will go up, and between now and then. Then following that, the next following Monday and Tuesday, there will be candidacy meetings. Those will be the last times for canvassing meetings, so February 12th, that's that Monday at 12, from 12 a.m. to 1 p.m., and then February 13th from 1 p.m. to whenever Preston is no longer available. Those are gonna be the very last days for canvassing meetings, so if you file before the deadline and you can get an appointment with Abby or Preston before those days, that's okay. But those are gonna be the absolute last times that you guys can go into canvassing meetings. And again, this is just for running for officers, so if you're running for just another senator position, you don't have to worry about all that. Canvassing meetings are the meeting that you have to have with someone who is not running, so that's why Abby and Preston are the only ones that are holding those. And those are just the rules of candidacy, so you can't campaign at all until you have that meeting. So even if you file by the deadline, so you don't go for a canvassing meeting, you cannot campaign on campus at all. So it's really important that you get in for those. And then, like we announced already, the election dates for those elections are going to be March 1st and 2nd. Senator elections, that's going to apply to more of you probably. So the filing deadline for those is going to be March 30th. That's also Friday, so it's going to be the end of that business day at 5 p.m. And then those candidacy meetings can be scheduled to anyone on the executive board, this current executive board, anywhere between April 2nd and 4th. You just have to get in with one of us on one of those 3 days. So that's going to be a little bit easier scheduling wise. But just those are tentative dates, so just get with somebody on the EV and when that gets closer, obviously, and schedule a more specific time for your meetings. They're not going to be very long at all, so it's not a huge deal. And then those election dates are going to be April 19th. I think that's all I had. I was in the meeting today with Savannah for this doing thing. I had to ride the bike home and then back to this meeting, so it was real fun. I think that's probably why I broke it, because it's like solar, and I took it in my apartment, so that might be why, but I don't know. We'll see. That's it.
I will add on to that is that she gave y'all the time that I gave her. None of those times for candidacy meetings work. Please just email me and we'll set up a time that works for the both of us. That way that you're not just missing out on campaigning solely because you couldn't make one or two tentative times.
I will say though, that's why I made that announcement, that those are the absolute last times you can come in. If you are going to need to come in, like if those work times don't work for you, then you need to get in before then, because those are the last days, because they have to be 2 weeks before the elections. So those are the absolute last times you can do it. So if you know now your schedule and you know those aren't going to work for you, file before the 9th and then get in your canvassing meeting before those days. You have to file before you get in your canvassing meeting. You have to get in a canvassing meeting before you can campaign.
Senator Johnson.
It's going to be on the website by the end of the day tomorrow. All of the information and all the applications will be on the website tomorrow.
Student voice reports. We'll start with the freshman senators.
The main thing I've been hearing from freshmen on campus was things that also met food quality and particularly like plastic forks and paper plates now. And there's like some lights outside the net that are out in
The reason they're going to plastic and paper right now is the heating element in the dishwasher. So I talked to Andy Krause today about that.
So that is only temporary.
They're going to replace it. So it sounds like this big scary thing because it was fire, but it's heating elements like that, especially in something that has continuous usage like that. They don't have long service life. So.
In summary, paper and plastic stuff in the Met is only temporary, and we're sorry about it.
I figured they were just like, okay, why is this happening?
Any other comments from freshmen? Eagles Landing.
Yeah, that's what it is. Everything's been going well so far at Eagles. And besides the fairness, before we made a couple comments about that, I mean,
So that's a new one.
there are cameras that have basically been put out, a couple throughout the compound, I guess you could say, and it goes straight into the PD's feed, so there's no privacy issues.
Committee reports. So student life.
Student life did not meet last week because I was at UTSAC, but we will meet this week at 11:15. Sorry, y'all.
Communications.
We met Monday and Lindsay made a legit officer elections thing since she just got to send me another guy. And then I'll get that to y'all, and then we can get it out. It's really cool. And then we also have our other ones that we made for the kickoff and sleigh for finals or whatever. And I'm gotta get with you to figure out how to do that handle. And then I'll get this out. Yeah.
SGAC?
We did not have any requests last week, but we did meet, we kind of went over our goals for the semester, which we did meet. A goal that we talked about wanting to implement in the spring is we want to do another co-organization event. That would be really neat to approve. We've already approved one big multiple organization event that's happening on campus, so that was exciting. We kind of went over the bylaws and whatnot. We made some changes at the beginning of the year, and we didn't see any other changes that we made at this time. We will meet tomorrow as well, to kind of go over everything that Jacob talked about earlier, but we do not have any requests.
Rules Committee?
We did not meet the week before Thanksgiving because I was in Atlanta doing my Atlanta conference. So we'll be meeting tomorrow in my office at 3:20. 3:30. I have not decided yet if that's going to be our last meeting, so I will get back to you guys on that, but just come tomorrow.
Student Affairs?
We met Monday, and primarily talked about the tuition fees proposal, talked about EMS and students, which we've had. So that was good feedback to give within my committee. And then we also talked about Senator project, because we'd really like to see that money go for something.
Is there any old business at this point? Just so we know which one to start.
I want
That's for point of information.
Motion to review the 5-year survey and affirmative action. No, start with tuition fees. Let me through.
So we'll bring from the table the endorsement on tuition and fees. And so at this point, yeah. Okay. So recap, Laura and I presented the tuition and fees proposal, and we were one of the first sessions. And so there has been talks of an alteration to one of the things that was on our proposal for SGA that is now being slightly adjusted, and that is that we will be, instead of charging differential tuition to nursing, business, and engineering, we will adjust that by major so that it is not including the health sciences. A lot of the campus faculty did not think that the extra costs were as high in the health sciences, and so they were removed, and we are not allotting it by college for them. It still includes all of the College of Business and all of the College of Engineering, but now it is just nursing and not nursing and health sciences. Senator Freshon.
Can you clarify that just a hair better?
Yeah,
So it's
sorry.
basically saying that like
Differential tuition is charged to upper division classes in a particular college was what we proposed originally. It was then altered after input sessions to only be nursing and not nursing and health sciences. So it'd be upper division nursing classes, not upper division health sciences. So that was the only alteration to the proposal after all of the input sessions.
So Savannah and I were talking about this earlier today, and she made a good point about how she and I are both arts and sciences. I'm criminal justice, she's biochemistry. So will that also apply there? Because it does cost more to educate Savannah than it does me. So will was that alteration made only to address that issue with nursing and nursing and health sciences, or is it going to be applied to arts and sciences majors that are, in the sciences as well?
After the recommendations from the deans, Dean Slan did request that natural sciences be added. He also requested that communications be added. But we felt that most of those costs were based majoritively on they would be better served in a course fee, which comes with labs. And so we did not we did not impose differential tuition onto anything in the College of Arts and Sciences after their meeting. So to continue the recap, the proposal has been altered only in that essence, and we are either going to endorse the proposal as is, or we recommend changes that we would like to see in the proposal. So,
Or we decide to not endorse at all.
yeah,
That's the third option.
I'm getting it.
Okay.
Sorry. So we would recommend changes to the proposal, or we just flat out say no increase at all. Those are your three options. Now, Dr. Tidwell will either accept those changes that we recommend, or he will continue with the proposal as is and take it to the regents. So if that's the case and we did disagree with what Dr. Tidwell said, we would have to discuss options past that. But he's going to decide what goes on it. So, parliamentarian.
So I just have a couple of questions. So, well, actually, just first, before I go into the questions, just for clarification. I don't know how many of y'all read my announcement, but the way that we would, officially how we would recommend the changes would be to approve it or to endorse it with contingencies on the changes. So, just for clarification there. It would still be an approval motion. It would just be, we would amend the motion to say approve it contingent on these changes. But the questions I have, so you just mentioned in your officer report that the committee is not meeting anymore. Is that correct?
Correct.
They're done meeting.
We will alter the proposal if from what I'm understanding from Laura is correct, is that we have set aside what we are proposing. If SGA disagrees with that, then that will be a separate document aside from our proposal. Our proposal, as far as the committee is concerned, is locked in. So we've already started formatting it to the UT system policy. And that's our last step. Laura's doing that.
Okay, but the committee is done.
Correct.
Okay. So then any recommendations that we make tonight will go to who?
Dr. Tidwell, because he's the one that is making the recommendation to the regents. So our endorsement, either with contingencies or without, will go to him, and he will base what he wants on his proposal. He's reading ours and deciding, does he agree with it or not? Parliamentarian.
So then my next question is, what role did Dr. Tidwell have in the committee drafting the proposal?
Very limited. He does help Laura. So he does talk to her. They're housed in the same suite and in the admin building, so they do work together, but he was never present at any of our committee meetings. I'm sure that he's not unaware of what's on the proposal because he has been able to see our input sessions in that faculty senate when we presented it. So to them, so he's seen this. It's not been a blindside, and I don't think that there will be change or any parliamentarian.
Okay, so then now I'm going to actually get into some of the actual fees. So that student success fee, the $100 per semester, brand new one. My question is twofold. How is that different from student service fee? And what will it specifically fund?
So the student service fee is a legislative fee set up in the Texas Education Code. It is only allowed to fund certain things that are spelled out in the code. And so that's what's called a legislative fee. This is an incidental fee, which has a little bit more flexibility and is supposed to be aligned with the student success initiatives in our strategic plan. So that is where that is going. The student service fee is its own cost center and has to be spent on certain items.
Okay, that was the magic words right there I was waiting for. So, I don't know if any of y'all remember, but when Dr. Tidwell was here speaking to us about tuition fees and his strategic plan, he explicitly stated that his strategic plan initiatives would not cost the students any money. So I think that's something that we need to take into consideration when we're deciding if this fee is needed, and if it is needed, is that $100 figure necessary? I mean, because we're talking about $2 million extra per year total. That's a lot of money. And that's $200 per student a year, which is significant. You know, it doesn't really seem like it when you compare it to all of their tuition and fees and everything, but that's a lot of money. Especially for something that's going to go to one thing, going to be funding strategic plan initiatives. And if I'm not mistaken, it will not be overseen by a committee like the Student Fee Advisory Committee. So these are all things that we need to take into account. Those are all things that we could discuss in the Senate. You guys think that is important. But I think that because the way that it's structured now is, in my opinion, it doesn't have a lot of accountability to students, and they're the ones that are going to pay it. So I think that we need to do a little bit more thinking and discussing about that.
Senator Davis.
When I reviewed the budget comments that are revised, tuition, that was one fee that I was worried about. About $100 was a huge jump, like it's a big fee. And there's not a whole lot of insight to like where is this money going. It's pretty vague, like you have these bullet points of what you want to do with it. And $100 is a huge fee that I think is a little too high. I mean, honestly, I think maybe suggest maybe lower the fee amount, maybe $5 something that's more reasonable. $100 is
Senator Bill.
So my question is, do you have a revision that you have in mind? That's the first thing. And secondly, we also have to think about a budget cut. You're right, we supplement $2 million, but we're still $4 million short than what we were last year, and we have more students. So do you have a proposal or maybe a revision that you have in mind that would be a better option to make some students feel better about it?
In my personal opinion, I don't think that the students should have to make up for budget cuts that came from a legislative session. I think that it's really unfortunate that that happened, and it sucks, especially for us, because we're funded by student fees. But I don't think that I don't think that we as students have to make up for it. I think that there are obviously increases in fees are needed because they're, you know, we're talking about budget cuts, we're talking about athletic fees that haven't been increased in way too many years. You know, obviously there's a need for it. Do I think that there's a need for $100 per semester per student? Absolutely not. And then addressing your other question about my specific recommendation, I believe that, so going off of what I just said, I believe that recommending a lower fee there would be sufficient. And I also think that we need to recommend that a committee is overseeing it so that it's not going to this vague person where we don't really know what exactly it's going to, and this person controls all of it and where it goes and what it funds and what it doesn't fund. Because at the end of the day, we are the ones paying it. Whoever that person is that's controlling the money is not the one, it's not coming out of their pocket, it's coming out of our pockets. So I think that a committee to oversee that fee is integral to its not passage. That.
Senator Robbins.
How do we calculate this fee versus $100 for us to $25? How do we calculate? We have some kind of versus
Could you say that one more time? So
How do we find his run up is $100? But that would be too high. But how do we find something that also punishes the money that we lost? How do we calculate that? Is that different?
well, let Stan answer that question.
This fee doesn't exist, so it would be a brand new fee that is $100. That's the idea. And this fee alone is not making up for anything. There is a tuition increase. There's other fee increases that are supposed to help supplement the budget for the cuts that we lost, and also to keep up the programs that we already have, create new ones, supplement for new enrollment, the increases in enrollment. This whole proposal is about, she showed us that graph where we are below this line. We are in deficit, every year for, I think it was the past 4 years. I don't remember exactly, but we are below that line. The idea is that an increase in tuition and fees, not necessarily this fee alone, would bring the budget back up closer to being, right on the line or even in surplus in the coming years, so that the university can continue to provide a really quality education. In regards to your fee, in regards to this fee specifically, the idea is that this fee funds the strategic plan initiative that was not supposed to cost students anything in the first place, but that strategic plan is currently still very vague, and so we don't know any sort of specific thing that it would fund. So $100 every semester for something that I'm not really sure what it's doing doesn't sit well with me, but I think that feeling could change if there was some sort of specific programs or, specific initiatives within that would be paid for by the implementation of that fee. Does that make sense?
I
Okay.
have the initiatives list that was on the slide for the proposal. And so the student service or student success fee was supposed to help fund initiatives such as student service training to all team members, encourage adoption of open educational resources, pilot on-demand degree programs, provide professional development for faculty, emphasizing learner-centered teaching, align financial aid programs to enrollment management strategies, establish career placement offices in each college, establish mentoring programs, and initiate Honors 360 and Student Success 360. One of the things that we discussed was that the open educational resources would save you more than $100 in books than you would pay in the fee in the first place, which goes back into the offsetting costs. Senator Bill.
Going back to parliamentarians idea of committee, I do like that idea. I do think it is concerning for some students that since it's not already implemented and since we don't know what that fee would go towards exactly as of yet, I do feel putting in a contingency to have a committee oversee that would be beneficial. I need to ask you about implementation. Is that something that could very well be done?
Of a committee?
Yes, to oversee that particular funding.
So I would not want it to be an SGA ad hoc committee or a standing committee. That's not, I don't deem that would be appropriate.
I think we're talking about a committee similar to SFAC.
I'm getting it. And so what we would need is a university governance committee. Those currently are made up of, we'll use SFAC for an example. Those are 5 students and 9 faculty members and an ex officio officer. So 4 faculty. That's what I thought I said.
You said 5 and a half.
Okay,
It's
sorry.
9 people total.
9 people total. 4 faculty, 5 students. And so if we did something similar, those 5 students would be appointed through SGA, which is one of my duties as president. And then the faculty portion would be appointed by Dr. Tidwell or whoever president of them. And so that's how that would work. And that way you have kind of balance of people who stay on the committee, who are knowledgeable about how the process works, and then you still get that student. Or let me take it.
I just want to address what you just said about the open, what is it called?
Open education.
Open educational resources. The beginning stages of that, well, the first problem I have with that assertion that it will save us that $100 is that the first stages of that is going to be, if it's even going to apply to a lot of students, it's going to be like a few of your core classes, and that's going to be it. And then even in its entirety, or at least by what it's, what's been presented to us, if I'm understanding this correctly, it's going to be for the core classes. So it's not even going to really apply to like the nursing majors who have to buy those like $1,000 books, because that's not an open educational resource thing that they can do. So they're still going to be paying for their books, and then they're also paying for this extra $100 fee.
What, I have the list. That's in a different email, but it's the list of like every single core class book. They start at in the range of like $380 for like biology. So what you would say is that any student who takes biology has just saved 2 years worth in just by having that one book with books.
Unless they rent the book for less than $380. That's the thing.
I
You can't
understand
you can't predict how much every student is going to pay in books, and then you also can't say that every single student is going to benefit from the open educational resource. Because if you have like a whole bunch of seniors that aren't taking any core classes, then they're still going to be paying the same amount, because the open educational resource thing doesn't benefit them at all.
So we would start with core classes. Doesn't mean that it's limited only to core classes. And there are several other programs.
I'm sure nursing could eventually transition to this, but the College of Pharmacy has an online database where the school has purchased our books, and we don't purchase anything. It's included in our tuition. We have access to this. If you become a preceptor once you graduate, you have access to this, and it's all of the materials that minus maybe one long book that will last us all 4 years. So it's very possible that those online databases could be implemented in a way like that. Not necessarily just this first step. So long run, we probably could implement it to a broader population.
Vice President.
I kind of want to transition to a different question, just before I totally forget. And this may be directed more towards Dr. Patterson or our advisor, Josh, who's on Zoom. I remember from the presentation, correct me if I'm wrong, that only the raise in the athletics fee would go to a student vote. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what else is on the vote, but I know the athletic fee is a student vote.
That's only
That's
one.
what I was told by Laura.
My follow-up question to that is, why are students not voting on this student service fee change, this technology fee change, the addition of the student success fee that, seemingly we think is too high, but maybe the majority of students who vote feel like that's totally reasonable. I'm curious, is there some sort of policy, or is it just because they don't have to go to a student vote that they're not? Maybe that's administrative, or maybe they just don't want to. I really don't know. I'm curious as to why that is.
The legislature or system sets which fees need to be voted on and which don't.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, athletics has to be voted on by the student fee and has to pass by the majority of those voting.
Mm-hmm.
The rec sports fee can only be changed by the legislature while it's in session.
Mm-hmm.
So the different fees have different rules.
Okay. So the other fees, like the student service fee, the technology fee, and this new student success fee, I thought there was one more, but I really can't remember all the names right now in this moment. I'm really sorry about that. They don't have to be voted on, so therefore they're not being voted on. Is that what I'm gathering?
That's what I was surmised to.
Okay. Thanks.
I'll touch on that in just a second. So since they're not required to be voted on by legislation, it goes to the regents. And the regents would approve it in February before we would even hold a vote. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for those other fees that are not like the athletic fee.
Right.
But the regents have the ability to come back and say, we approve this pending student vote. And so the regents will dictate that this is approved or this was approved as long as the students
I just wanted
approve
to
it.
expand a little bit on the voting thing. because I think that it's our duty as a student government association to represent the student body. Just because they don't have to go to a student vote doesn't mean they shouldn't. And ethically, I cannot vote for a proposal that has a bunch of fees where the majority of the fees are not being voted on by students when the students are the ones that are going to be paying for it in the long run. And if the worry is that if we bring it back to students to vote on it, then it won't pass and we don't get the fees we need, then that means that we're not doing a good enough job at educating students on these fees and what they do in their, everyday lives, everyday campus experiences and how they affect them directly. Because that's something that we can be doing as a Senate. We are, we're the middleman between administration and the students. So we can be doing that to say, hey, here's what these fees do for you. Here's things it funds. You may not know this because a lot of people don't know. I mean, the average UT Tyler student probably doesn't know that we're funded, that SGA and other student organizations are funded by student fees. So I think that that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Because like I said, we're tasked with representing the student body. And if this is something that the student body doesn't get a say in, explicitly each student voting on it and saying, here's what I think and here's why I want to vote for this or why I don't think that that is ethically right.
Sarah.
So it doesn't have to be voted on, how do we go about asking for it?
It would be a recommendation in our endorsement, just like the other ones that we've been talking about. And then similar to your previous question, we could recommend that, and then Dr. Wilson could say no.
Sarah Fisher.
So thinking about this student success fee, when people bringing that up, I didn't really catch that. In most presentations that students. So I don't want to mention that in one of the students, but after 2 weeks ago, listening to that spiel, I still really am for this decision increase, and I have talked to different students. And the big thing that I kind of want to remind us of is that it was $484 a semester. Times that by. Granted, we don't all graduate in 4 years exactly, but $2,870 total for 4 years. We graduate in 4 years. But the biggest thing that I'd like us to not the biggest thing, but something I would like us to remember is that there's a lot of things that are coming out of different budget lines that main budget should be coming back to students, but it's going towards the dance team. And that kind of bothers me. Like, if we're putting this money for something, I'd like to see that go towards everybody. And so with some of these tuition and fee increases, is things will finally start coming out of the correct budget line, which means that like this student services fee isn't funding something that doesn't affect the whole student body. And so that means more money is going to actually come back to us. There's lots of things that we've brought up multiple times throughout this semester that do need to be funded and do need to be paid for, but it's not being adequately paid for. And so I understand that certain things do cost money. It is frustrating to think that we can be more in debt to go to college. But even the nursing fee itself, and Sarah just talked about it, I'm not opposed. I know it costs money to educate me, and we have a multi-million-dollar sim lab with $1 million mannequins. And I'm okay that I'm going to have to pay more for that because that's how I learned for my degree. So, I don't know. And I have talked to different students, not only just in nursing, but even on campus things. It is going to cost money to get a better education, and we do keep talking about certain things. So the tuition fee proposal is important. It is important to talk to those people.
Vice President Seeley.
I just kind of wanted to echo a little bit of what Sarah talked about. That we tabled this conversation and talked to our constituents. I talked to a ton of my classmates because a lot of my classmates I find are older students who are coming back to school in order to get promotions or to go into a different field, whatever have you. And so these people being established, and it's not even the point. As a biochemistry major, there's millions of dollars in Dr. Patterson's lab upstairs on the 4th floor. There's millions of dollars of equipment in Dr. Smee's lab on the 3rd floor, Dr. Stoika's lab. And I benefit from those as a student. And that costs money from the department, from the university. I'm going to be a qualified professional candidate no matter where I go because I got a quality education. And I hope that they take the differential tuition by major. I hope that becomes a thing because I understand that my major has millions of dollars worth of equipment upstairs, and that that costs money, and that these fees, they make a difference in your starting salaries. They make a difference in how much you make in a lifetime because they improve the value of your degree. And that's what we're looking for here is if your degree is valuable, you're a valuable professional candidate. And so I think a lot of my peers really feel that this tuition fee increases the value of their degree in the long run and will increase the quality of their career in the long run. That's my gathering of opinions over this last couple weeks.
Senator Stevens.
A lot of things that I've heard from my peers who are freshmen, well, this will affect for the next 3 years in the semester if they graduate before, is that it's understood, it sucks. The state cut 6% of the funding. It really sucks. But we're the only ones that can make up for it. But no one's going to fund us. We have to do it ourselves. So, yeah. And maybe the student association, I don't agree with it. Maybe it should be cut in half, if that's more doable. Or maybe those funds should go to other departments. I don't know. I don't really have a solution for it right now. But the tuition fees need to be there.
Senator Strong.
I agree with this proposal because not only are the tuition fees need to be raised so that we can maintain and possibly grow our quality of education here, the fee that's being used for the Houston and the Grand campus, so they don't have to pay for the Talent Center and all that's also critically important. Why should they pay for something that they aren't going to use? If we don't make this change and endorse this, they're going to keep paying for stuff that they don't use, and that money won't go back to their program.
Senator Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, other than you're betting your education. I mean, you can, put yourself back and, fly. But just people that are buttered about it, I mean, you're not really going to notice, $200 difference. You'll only notice 1,000 when you see that bill. But, is there, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but, I mean, when it comes to the vote, is there any way we can, break this down over a semester, $50 at a time for, 2 years? Or, drag it out, give it for, maybe $100, over 2 years, that way not,
Which part specifically are you asking to?
like, take the $200 fee or whatever this is going for, better people's education, adding what our 2001, instead of maybe adding $200 onto the bill, cut it in, or half that, maybe a quarter of it.
So you're suggesting
So,
a step
slowly
increase?
build your way up to it, because, I mean, for some people, yeah, $200 will fly, and, that's a whole lot of money. Some people go when they realize just pay it. But I think it would open up a whole lot more people to the idea of, okay, this is good if it was a smaller number.
Parliamentarian Hickey.
Yeah, I don't think that the question here is whether or not we need the fee increases. I think that that's very clear. I think there's a consensus here that, yeah, we suffered some big budget cuts and we do need the fee increases. I think that we as a Senate need to decide if this specific proposal with the student success fee is sufficient to do that, if it's too much, if it's not enough. I didn't want to come off like I don't support it, because I do. I'm an athlete. Obviously, I'm going to support increases because, we haven't increased the athletic fee for 6 years, at least 6 years, and I am directly, affected by that. So obviously, I'm going to support the increases because it directly affects me in student government and golf and everything that I do, because it's all funded by student fees. I just think that there are some logistic things in the proposal itself that we would benefit from recommending changes to.
Secretary McDaniel.
What is the average tuition at you do?
So in our proposal, at our current, if you calculated what our increase will be as proposed, added it to what we have now, we would reach what is average for East Texas for institutions that are public.
I don't know why we're complaining.
Considering that all of them are also fielding increased requests, they will all go up as well.
It's just like, I feel like, this is how I personally feel about people like discussing this. I think we all agree like we need tuition increases. But there's a lot of people out there that are complaining about the fact that we pay like $3,900 for tuition when that's probably the most plus thing that we could have. I mean, and we complain about $72 for a parking space when Pittsburgh like used to pay $1,000. Like, I just feel like maybe I don't know. And then when does it start again? The fall?
Yes.
I just don't like it.
But it would not be fully implemented in the fall, so it
just doesn't start next semester though, right?
No, it does not start.
That's just what someone asked.
Senator Fresh-Hour.
So I do agree with Katie that I think we can make some recommendations to this, and just to play kind of the devil's advocate with this SGA, I don't agree with $100 either. It's a little absurd right off the bat. But playing devil's advocate, I don't like that he said that it wouldn't cost students things, but based off the list that you just kind of rattled off, there are some things that we do need better attention to. Like it says something about the career services in each major. That would be huge. And I don't think you just pull these people from thin air and magically not be able to pay them. Is $100 per semester a lot? Yes, but we start off 25, 50. I don't know. But there are things in the strategic plan that would affect all of us. Like I can only speak for nursing as far as advising, but the school of nursing advising is trash. They have 3 advisors for over 500 students, and it's impossible to get in. And there's like we need to hire more people to advise students. And I feel like advising is kind of the common area for most people are getting off to. So I don't completely support $100, but a student success fee is not a terrible idea if we have better indications of where that money is going. So I do agree with you that we can support something like this. So let's make some recommendations and say what we do want to be done with said money. But there's no point in saying yes or no if they don't really know why we're saying yes or no. Tell them what we want because we do have this opportunity to at least explain our points.
Senator Johnson.
How did the committee come up with the number to pay number to raise? Like, was it $200 or $100?
The $100 a semester was that was a suggestion made by Laura. She brought us kind of different ideas of what we could do. So she was like, okay, this is how much a percentage in tuition would be. And this is the fees that we targeted that are lacking. And this is how much we think we need in those. And then the new fee was kind of something that was brought together by concerns. And so that were just stuff that we had heard, and she created that. I'm not sure why she chose that number, but it was something that we didn't feel was inappropriate.
So if it was like, $50 or maybe $85, like what would be cut from that plan, that vision?
It depends on, let's say we do provide a governance committee for it. So they would allocate money based on what they prioritize. If there is no governance committee and it goes to Dr. Tidwell to allocate that money to different projects, it would be whatever he prioritizes in those strategic planning initiatives. More than likely, you would see something like career services being implemented first because they're already trying to move to their office anyhow. And there's openings and positions for that. There's also been, reallocation of who's already in positions in their office. So they will probably no longer be housed in the UC on the second floor, and they will be moving to a per college basis no matter what. But that does incur a cost. So it's either going to have to come from somewhere existing right now that's underfunded or from this. Senator Bell.
Just kind of a question as a whole. would it make people feel more comfortable to compromise by saying we'll pay $100 as long as, you know, we feel it would be best if we implemented said committee? Is there a way to compromise, like, yes, we will pay that fee, but we would feel a lot better about paying that fee if we had someone overseeing it? Or is this, no, we don't need to have the $100, we really just need to lower it? Is there a compromise that we need? How does everyone feel about a compromise?
Parliamentarian Hicken.
Let me make sure I understood you correctly. So you're asking if the compromise that you're talking about is maybe instead of us saying we lower the fee, then we say we accept the $100, but we want a committee? Is that what you're saying? I think that we need both. I think the recommendation needs to have both. I think it needs to be lowered and there needs to be a committee overseeing it. That's just my personal opinion.
Senator Freshour.
Josh Green or Dr. Patterson, can I have another, what is the timeline again on this? Because I want to remind everybody that last week, Josh reminded us about how important it is to really talk about this.
The timeline for which part?
Like us saying, yes, we endorse this, and no, or yes, we endorse this.
She said when you want.
Dr. Tidwell, I believe, has to submit his proposal to the Board of Regents by December the 6th. So the timeline is we need to give him something as soon as humanly possible so that he can decide to alter his proposal.
And then we will hear back from the board in February as far as what their decision is and what their recommendation is as far as if it's been approved or if they require additional action from the students.
Senator Davis.
What $100 have inappropriate right away? Maybe like scale it back, and then like that's not enough money for the initiatives, and they can come back and justify why they need more money with their initiatives. That could be a better idea. So doing $100 all at once, maybe start with a little less, and if you need more money, it wasn't enough, say why, and then we can bump it up the initiative.
Would you recommend what amount?
I don't know, I think like $25, $50, somewhere in that range, a little more.
Senator Joe.
I agree with what he was saying. I think if we could see some immediate result and how this money is actually being used, I would be a little more supportive of it. I hear what all y'all are saying. I've talked to a lot of students about this. For the most part, though, I have not heard a lot of people that would enjoy it and actually see it as something that we could. I think if you're a little bit of a lot of people are here because it's taking up work. Or me, if I was looking for something that was able to give me more, I would have gone to Austin or A&M. I would have afford this without a lot of debt. So I think it just needs to keep in mind where we are.
Secretary McDaniel.
Just out of curiosity, if the majority of the Senate feels that, can you put in a motion of what we're wanting? Like, can you put in a motion that we want to increase tuition fees, but we would recommend that you drop the student fee?
It would just amend the current motion that I have.
Parliamentarian Hickey. I'll let you come.
So, yeah, I'll address that. So, what the best way to go about it would be, because we are in discussion of a motion currently, what we would do is we would pass the motion contingent on the recommendations, and then after we vote on that, we would then make motions for each specific recommendation.
Okay.
And then vote on each of those.
Gotcha.
Senator Freshour.
So this is just more kind of the importance of these conversations being happened to now. I agree with Senator Hughes. I would like for us to somewhat agree on a certain amount tonight if we want to lower it. I want to lower the student success fee, at least from the get-go, at the beginning, it needs to be $100 right off the bat. So we need to ask these questions tonight because things need to be submitted next week. And that's why we've got 2 weeks, really 1 school week, to talk to the constituents. But ask these questions now, throw out ideas that you want of what amounts necessary to do, because we do need to act quickly. We don't need to. But I kind of like 50, 25 seems a hair too low, because I feel like we won't see too many changes get made. But 50 seems like a somewhat reasonable starting point to go, okay, how much can we get done with $50 a semester? So as far as just the success fee, I'm all for all the other increases that they mentioned in the proposal 2 weeks ago, but the student success fee, I would like $6 success fee as the start point.
Senator Strong.
I agree with that. I think the student success fee needs to be changed to $50 and that we recommend the committee. Because otherwise, how are we going to know how the money's being implemented? Because President Tidwell, but I feel much more comfortable if there was a student success fee.
Vice President Seeley.
Move to amend the current motion so that the new amended motion states we endorse the tuition proposal contingent on the reduction of the student success fee to $50 and the creation of a committee that would oversee its allocation.
All right, so it's been motioned and seconded to amend the motion to have contingencies on a $50 student success fee and a university governance committee overseeing how that fee is allocated. Vice President Seeley nods.
Dr.
I'd
Preston?
suggest you be a little bit more prescriptive in what the committee makeup is.
I believe in the way he stated it'd be the university governance committee. Isn't there like a setup for how those work already?
No, I don't think so. I think all of these committees are appointed by provosts and the VP for student affairs, recommended to the president, and then we decide.
Okay.
So to just clarify with everybody, we would now need to either decide a makeup of that committee so we could base it off of a current committee structure or create our own guideline. Parliamentarian Hickey.
Okay, so this is, the way that we're going about this is gonna make it a lot harder on ourselves. That's why I mentioned that we would just, the new motion should state, we're going to endorse endorse the proposal contingent on recommendations, that's it. We pass it with it saying recommendations, then we make specific motions for each recommendation. That way we can go in the recommendations and we can actually outline all of the gritty details that come with our recommendation so that we don't have to do it all and talk about it all in one motion.
Senator Bill.
So issue 2 is if we want to do it that way, we need to deny or vote no for this motion, and then someone would need to make a new motion. Stated the way that.
Under the old structure, yes.
Or just an
It's
We
already
can't
said.
amend it.
Well, no, because
It's
she
just
made an amendment. She made a motion to amend the initial motion. So we would need to deny that, and somebody would make a new motion to amend the initial motion.
All in, so at this point, all in favor of the amending of the motion as I had stated it earlier? All in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? So now that has been, that original amendment is denied. Parliamentarian.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to move to amend the original motion to state endorse the proposal contingent on recommendations.
Second.
It has been motion and seconded to amend the motion to be endorsed with recommendations. Parliamentarian Hickey.
All right, so I kind of already explained why we're doing all this. After, if we pass this, after it's passed, then we can go and make new motions for each recommendation, talk about those specifically. And then in those recommendations that we actually send to President Tidwell, we can outline all of the details there.
All right, then seeing there's no further comments, I'm going to call for revision. Are you reading it? Okay. Yeah, we're just voting on the amendment right now. So all in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? All right, that amendment passes. Senator Bill.
Motion to make a recommendation that we lower.
Point of information, we only approve the amendment So now we have to discuss the motion that is the endorsement, and then we'll vote on that. And then we go back and move and discuss and vote on recommendations. So this is like a tenfold process, y'all. Buckle in.
Senator Fisher.
Basically, why we discussed this, you know, the beginning discussion point, we're just like now, we're like, this process going.
Senator Johnson.
Yeah, I think $50 is a little low. I think it should be $75.
Point of information, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate your input. But we'll save those specific comments for when we're actually moving to recommend specific things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so now we're just talking about approving or endorsing the proposal with recommendations. We'll start going over discussion points for the recommendations when we discuss each recommendation. Right. Okay. Senator Bill. All right, at this point, I don't see any other comments. Is there anything on Zoom?
Nope.
Okay. So now I'm gonna call for a division, which means that we're gonna do a roll call vote. So that way, now I wanna do that by ballot. Roll call vote. That way, we're actually getting an actual count instead of just saying aye and nay.
Point of information, so for those of you who have never done a roll call vote, Abby is just gonna go through roll call like normal, and you say yes or no, or abstain.
Abby has a question.
Did we make a motion yet? I'm sure.
Yeah.
So is this over the original motion to endorse recommendations? I thought we had already passed that.
Endorse the proposal with recommendations. We're
Okay,
voting on
so
that.
then what is this individual vote for?
This,
It's to approve that motion. Approve or deny that motion, what we
I thought
just.
we already passed it.
No,
We
we
passed
have
an
to pass the
amendment.
amendment to the original motion, now we're voting on the motion that was amended.
Yes.
Good night, all right.
so Secretary McDaniel, would you please dispense the roll call vote?
Yes. All right. Councilwoman, you don't.
I don't vote.
Vice President Sealy.
Yay.
Treasurer McLeod.
Yay.
Oh, I guess it's me. Yay. Treasurer McLeod, okay. Parliamentarian Hicken.
Yay.
Senator Lunsford. Senator Parrish. Senator Jawad. He's here, yeah, he's dead. Okay, Senator Joe.
Yay.
Senator Parrish.
Yay.
Senator Jacobs.
Yay.
Senator Williams. Senator Washburn's not here. Senator Freshour.
Yes.
Senator Shaka. Senator Bell. Senator Method. Oh, Senator John is absent. Senator Sweetland.
Yes.
Senator Camarillo. Senator Meek. Senator Robertson. Senator Romero. Here. Senator Adams.
Yay.
1 second. Hey, Senator Jawad, do you vote yay or nay for this? Okay, so yes.
He said yes.
Senator Daniel, yeah. Senator Dukes?
Yay.
Senator Fruit?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay. Senator Johnson?
Yay.
Okay. Senator Tucker. Senator Morrison.
Yeah.
Senator Arundel not here. Senator Strong.
Yay.
Senator Copeland. Senator Seeley.
That passes. Parliamentarian Hickett.
That's a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
All in favor of a 5-minute recess?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? That passes.
Hey, does someone vote?
Don't leave.
Be back by 7:47, please.
Yeah, we'll do roll call again when we come back. A response from Dr. Patterson, from Josh, from Ona Tolliver, the Dean of Students, and that the next step would be a trial period. They bring the bikes here for a period of approximately 4 to 6 weeks. Students use them for free. The university is not charged for this trial period in the model that they have. At the end of the trial period, regular operations begin, which is where students pay for using of the bikes. If at that time we have funds available to pay for the bikes so that students don't have to pay for them, we could use that model instead. But there's no way to know the amount of usage, the areas, the number of bikes necessary without implementing this trial period. And so our recommendation to bring them here for a trial period is the logical next step for making this initiative happen, in my opinion.
Parliamentarian Hickett.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate some things that she said. In our meeting today with them, we obviously talked a lot about costs and who's going to pay for it and what we think is best. Obviously, what would be ideal is that students don't pay for it. I mean, in these survey results, you'll see, and Savannah can talk about it, but a lot of students expressed that they would not want to use it if they hadn't paid for it. And kind of, I think the principle of it was to kind of replace the shuttles, which students didn't have to pay for. So I think that's obviously going to be the end goal. And the only way to get there is to get the information about how much they're being used and then how much it would cost for like the university or the sponsors to pick up the tab for us that we don't have to pay for it. So just reiterating what Savannah said, the only way to get that information is to have this trial period. And they mentioned to us that that's something that they've done before, where they just bring bikes and then, you know, use it for information gathering so that they can have a set number, because, you know, he was saying they're still very young and they might be thinking of ways to fund it here at UT Tyler that, you know, they haven't thought of before. Something that we talked about in our meeting this morning was, you know, maybe just bringing 150 bikes and then they will create some kind of, you know, payment plan based on how much we've used it that the university would then pay. But we can't do any of that until we have this trial period with the data. So I think that they're doing a lot on their end to help us get it set up here. And I think that, you know, we can kind of return the favor by, you know, endorsing it, recommending it here at least first.
Vice President Seeley.
Okay, so I want to run through these survey results because we did talk a lot about needing to know what students felt about this kind of program. So the first question, what is your classification? And if you'll run down to here. There was a pretty good spread among the different classifications. You know, 24% juniors, 21% seniors, 18% sophomores, and 20% freshmen. Go ahead. Where do you live? I was surprised at the amount of people who participated that live off campus, but that does represent, you know, a large portion of our population, people who live off campus. So I feel like that was also indicative of our campus population as a whole. Which of the following applies to you? As you can see, a lot of students currently do not have bicycles. 64.83% of the students who took this survey said, no, I do not have a bicycle. The following question, would you use a bicycle if it were provided on campus? Definitely yes, and probably yes made up over 80% of the responses. So that's pretty indicative of how students feel about it. Implementing a bicycle sharing program on campus would benefit students. you can see by the graph, the amount of disagrees and strongly disagrees is exceedingly low. So this would indicate that even if you wouldn't use it personally, you still feel that it's good for other students on campus. And then here we have I think it's 6 reasons you may use a bicycle: exercise, get to and from class. Again, a really nice spread. So students would be using this for a variety of reasons, that it's not really marketed to one demographic. And then a lot of comments said, no, we need a parking garage. This doesn't solve our parking progress. A really common comment, and I've read each and every one of these. If you want to read them, I can put this PDF up, is that a lot of students said they would not use it if they had to pay for it, if they had to pay per ride. And I think that was, those comments were kind of brought on by the video sample that we put in the email where it showed you paying to ride. And, you know, this program, they generally have students pay to ride, so that makes sense that students would be concerned about that. But there is clearly a way that we could avoid that and accommodate these comments and concerns that students have. But in general, I feel like the comments were fairly positive. You have those, you know, negative comments, and that's good. A lot of them were about, this doesn't fix the parking problem. The university shouldn't spend money on bikes. They should spend money on, you know, buildings or computers, that kind of thing. It's those are fairly standard when it comes to these kinds of surveys. And again, in the interest of time, I will put this on Canvas and you can read them if you so want to. But I think you can see that the comments were fairly positive. And I think that's the end.
I think that, I mean, needless to say, the trial run, I think is going to be, you have to do it, you need to do it. But I know our end goal is the not having to pay for, students aren't having to pay for it. But if there were a case where we didn't have enough funds to do it, and we did the trial run, and then we did make them pay for it, you know, that data is going to be completely useless.
In the meeting, they talked about that they've done like the trial run where it's free on campus, and then it's transitioned to students paying for it. And they said that there is some dip initially, but that there is the bike sharing culture and the monthly and the yearly sort of option, and that they're moving towards you being able to purchase these like in your cashiers and use your financial aid to do this through the school, and it be similar to your printing. You get $25 of printing money that's built into your tuition and fees. This would be similar, but it would be optional because clearly not every student would use this. Sort of like the refillable cup that's on campus. I don't know if y'all know it. You can go to the cashiers and purchase it. It's $50 for unlimited refills in the UC for a full semester. It'd be a similar process, and you could use your financial aid to do so. That is sort of where they hope to be come this fall. And I think that would be a way to sort of, if the university couldn't fund it, that would be a way to supplement it, where students could pay for it if they wanted, they could use their financial aid, much like a lot of, you know, you choose your dining meal plan. You can get a lot of meals for a lot of money, or you can get less meals and less dining dollars. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought he was going to cover that, and there's so much going on. I'm so sorry.
Senator Fisher.
Comments about the kind of reading them, a lot of people were complaining that we need more bike racks in general. Well, this spin thing kind of helps with, you don't need bike racks for it. Now, granted, those people probably have their own personal bike, and maybe that's why they're saying it. But in general, the good thing about this spin is that you don't need bike racks, so that's we're saving it there. We don't need to include more bike racks.
Parliamentarian Hicken.
I just wanted to address just quickly what Mackenzie was saying. And we, in our meeting today, talked to them about, you know, the possible funding and what I was just saying earlier about them creating some new type of funding that they, or new program at least of paying that they don't do at other campuses because our need is different. So, you know, in that process, we could, you know, that's something that we can express to them is, you know, we want to get, you know, at least the first like payment plan before we have all this data so that, you know, we could use a SFAC one-time fund request or a senator project, anything like that. Those are options as well. You know, if they are willing to do that and, kind of create some kind of payment plan that doesn't have to be initially based off of the data that comes from the trial run, then we can, hopefully get some other type of payment implemented before the trial run is up, and then students don't have to pay for it at all.
You said one-time request for SFAC?
Yeah.
Because this would be an annual cost.
That's why I'm saying, like, it would be some kind of, like, it would just be a one-time thing until we could figure out, based on the data, more exactly how much it's going to cost, and then figure out where we get it from after that.
But you can submit a one-time request to get it going, but the fee committee will view this as an annual cost and may decline the request. But if the pitch is we're using the one-time request to get us going, they may be open to that.
Yeah. Or we would use Senator Project, money to just get it going, something to just get it going.
Yes.
Like she would like.
I just wanted to make sure that you were talking about the initial startup, not covering anything. Vice President.
I also wanted to mention briefly that this was the only company that we found that does not have any additional cost. Should the only way to get this on campus be that students pay for the rides, there's no additional cost to the university, and everything that they provide is based on the volume of rides. And this is a model that works at other universities. While it may not be super favorable and it may not be something that we want ideally, it clearly works. And if the trial data shows that students are really using this service, then I think it's worth keeping, and that, another company, it's their startup cost plus 2 years of contract for 4 bike racks and 16 bikes was $60,000. We're not looking at anything like that. And that, this trial run would make us be able to move forward with more informed decisions. Is there anything else?
Any further discussion on the recommending the bike share? All right, all in favor of recommending the trial period for spin bikes on campus, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? That passes. Is there any other old business? None. Is there any new business? Also hearing none. Advisor comments?
I think y'all did a good job tonight. I know it was a long meeting. It's been a while since y'all had a long meeting like this, but I think y'all did a really good job of looking at different things and discussing it and trying to find what's in the best interest of the students and for the university. As far as the bike share, I think it's I really did enjoy their presentation today. I think that speaks a lot for someone to fly in all the way from San Francisco, and they're really confident in their product. And so obviously we're going to make sure that there's minimal cost to students, because I'm equally passionate about that. I think more students will use this if there's no cost, but it really depends on how much it's going to cost us to invest in it. I know y'all approved it to get this going, but there are some logistics that we still need to work out. Where are we going to place the bikes? We need to look at the liability forms, get those to our standards. And then we also need to talk about some policies to make sure our policies are fully updated to allow the bikes completely on campus. And so I think it's something that we should definitely be able to have the trial ready to go for the fall. But if, one of y'all, the officers, hit the ground running, it is possible to have this in the spring if we're able to knock out some of those logistics. I think this topic may need to be rediscussed again once we actually have final concrete numbers on who's going to pay for what. The only other thing is I think are getting kind of caught up in this whole Robert's Rules of Order. And so really, if you're confused about how it works or the process, take the time to meet with Katie. She has spent a lot of time researching this and learning the ins and outs. And so Robert's Rules is designed to help make things more efficient. And I think tonight there was a little bit of some confusion and why are we doing it this way and so forth. And so either y'all need to meet with her or y'all need to start looking at writing into the constitutional bylaws different things that will make it simpler for y'all. But overall, I think y'all had a good meeting.
Any announcements? Like to entertain a motion to adjourn?
Well, second roll call.
Oh, sorry. Secretary McDaniel, would you dispense second roll call?
President Tillman,
Here.
Vice President Seeley,
Here.
Treasurer McLeod, Parliamentarian Hicken,
Here.
Senator Lunsford, Senator Jawad. Got it. Senator Jobe.
Here.
Senator Parrish. Senator Jacobs. Senator Williams. Senator Washburn. Senator Frischauer. Senator Shaka. Senator Bell. Senator Method. Senator John. Senator Sweetland. Senator Camarillo. Senator Meek. Senator Robertson. Senator Romero. Senator Adams. Senator Daniel. Senator Dukes. Senator Fruit.
Here.
Senator Jackson. Senator Johnson. Senator Mazat. Senator Tucker. Senator Morrison. Senator Mosley. Senator Arguello. Senator Hart. Senator Strong. Senator Copeland. Senator Seeley.
Senator Sweetland.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Point of information, we haven't adjourned yet.
No abstentions, so adjourned.
Thank you.
Yahoo, everybody, Yahoo! Yeah, is Josh still on?
Just Josh so much. I'm hungry.
On record.
Hold on.